Hi everyone, my name is Amanda. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I have been a new grad in a level 3 NICU for the last 2 months, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I got this position. So a little bit of a background, I've always known that I wanted to be a nurse since I was a little girl. Unfortunately, from a very young age, had a lot of experience in the medical field, being a patient myself, and then I became an aunt when I was 12 years old, and from then I knew that I wanted to work with moms and babies. My early working life, I was a waitress and then a bartender, and that really taught me a lot of time management skills. Nursing is very similar to being a waitress because you have to manage multiple patients. Around 2019, I decided to leave the restaurant industry and I applied to a hospital for a similar position. It was called a hostess, and what I did was I would take meal orders from patients and then I would go to the kitchen, set up the trays, and deliver them back to the patient. During this role, I got to train on each floor, each unit, different specialties, and I would communicate with patients about their breakfast, lunch, and dinner orders. And this taught me a lot about certain diets. I didn't know at that time that if you're taking certain medications, or you are a diabetic, or you have some cardiac complications, that you need a diet tailored to your needs. And in addition to that, I began developing different relationships with nurses on different floors, communicating with dietitians, and sometimes even the physicians. Not only that, but it gave me a general idea of the workflow of each unit and specialty. About 10 months later into this role, I decided that I wanted to become a certified nursing assistant. This was also during the beginning of COVID. So June 2020, I did an online CNA course. It was like Monday through Friday, and it was from like 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. So it was a very quick and intense CNA class, and then I mostly worked at night or during the weekends as a waitress. And around August of 2020, I got my first position as a CNA. It was for an oncology med-surg floor. As a CNA and as a nursing student, I got to observe and learn many skills. By the time that I was an actual nursing student, it really helped me just understand different disease processes and what you do as a nurse while I was a student. My overall dream was to work with moms and babies, as I said. About a year later, there was finally a role open for a CNA position, and I applied to it as soon as I could. After working with oncology patients for about 10 months, I got the job on the mother-baby unit as a CNA. This was like the highlight of my life. It just felt like I finally got my dream job working with moms and babies. I knew that being in this role as a CNA would create a smooth transition to a nursing role on the same unit, which was pretty much my plan. But the more that I worked on mother baby, I had to bring milk to the NICU sometimes. I had to bring the parents over to the NICU to visit their baby, and I just fell in love with the NICU. To be honest, I wasn't always the best in school growing up. I always had this voice in the back of my mind like I would never be smart enough to work in like an ICU or emergency department, but it was always so interesting to me. I became so fascinated that nurses are able to take care of these very sick babies and also support the parents along the way. 2 years into this role on mother baby, I finally graduated my community college with my prerequisites. I applied to a local university for their nursing program, but I ended up being denied. I didn't want to wait any longer. I decided to apply to Chamberlain University. I was graduating from Chamberlain around the end of April. I got an interview for the NICU early April. And then I'll just talk about everything that kind of set up my experience and transition to get hired in the NICU. So last fall season of 2024, I had my pediatric and maternity rotations. One of the days of maternity rotation, I asked to be in the NICU. Right at the beginning of the shift, there was a baby that was in respiratory distress. And I got to watch the physician insert a chest tube, and then right after he did a UAC and UVC line placement, which is basically a catheter that's placed into the umbilicus One goes through the vein and one goes through the artery. These lines are how we can give different fluids, and we can give medications or we can draw blood. That day was really an eye-opener for me to observe the workflow of nurses when it can be very intense in the NICU, and then also just the reality of how sick these babies really can be. Around this time of September last year, the application for the winter 2024 and summer 2025 residency application opened up, and I went ahead and applied for the 2025 summer residency program, basically a whole year before the program were to start. Because I already worked in the hospital, I emailed the educator of the NICU and the manager to see if I can get some shadowing hours. Altogether, I got 2 6-hour shadow experiences. And then I also had to beg Chamberlain for me to do my capstone placement in the NICU that I was applying for. And this capstone experience was amazing. It was 3 days in a row, 3 12-hour shifts. So the first day I had like a feeder grower baby. And then the second day I was with a nurse that had like a 24-week preemie in an incubator, so I got to see those cares. It was also on a ventilator machine. The third day, I was with a nurse who had a baby that was under cooling, which is induced hypothermia. Those cases are like a 1-to-1 nurse ratios. The nurse only has that one baby for the day. Overall, I had a lot of shadowing experience. I did my capstone placement, and the unit nurses and managers were already familiar with who I was because I worked next door in the postpartum unit. So all of this set me up very well for my NICU application and my interview. That month in April, early May, I graduated from Chamberlain University. It took about a month or a month and a half to study for the NCLEX, and I took that in June of 2025. I found out that I was an RN. Honestly, I really just relaxed as much as I could, because I knew that going into the NICU was going to be a lot of education, because they honestly don't teach you a lot about the NICU in nursing school. The nurse residency program started in late August, so I've been a new grad for about 2 months now. I finally just finished all of the education classes. Next month, the other resident and I are gonna start a NICU related project, and next summer we'll be presenting it to the residency cohort. But overall, the residency program is 1 year long, but our NICU orientation is like a total of 6 months before we're on our own. So the first week of December, I am switching to night shift, so that'll be a big change for me. That is pretty much all of my experience and how I got this position in the NICU. If I had to give any advice to you, if you want to work in the NICU, is to network as much as you can. If you have any clinicals and you get to have experience in the NICU, I would definitely get some contact information from their manager and ask to set up some shadowing days. Try to get your capstone or your practicum in the NICU. Ask for emails so that you can follow up with the NICU manager or the educator, just to keep in touch during the interview application process. If you are in your nursing journey, just know that you've got this and you'll be a nurse before you know it. I'll be sharing more about my NICU experience and tips for new grads, so stay tuned for the next video.